I've chosen a photo of my grandparents when they were courting, and they were returning from church. It was St Paul's Lutheran Church in City Road in Melbourne, and they were walking across the Princess Bridge to Flinders Street Station to catch the train home in their various directions, and they're caught on camera by a photographer who would take photos of people walking on the bridge in the hope that somebody would buy a photo. And in the photo, my grandmother is looking sort of flushed with like flirtation, but at the same time still quite shy. She was a very modest person, so just to see that emotion on her face is quite lovely. And my grandfather, you know, he's looking pretty pleased with himself, really. But I think that I really like the photo because it's that moment in time where, you know, there's so much that can open up for you, and in fact she had such an incredible life.
Is that why you chose it? Why is it special to you?
It's special to me is partly because I think it's special to all women. I think she just happened to be like just a complete fluke that she was born in 1925, and she was reasonably good at school and liked school, so she went on to high school, which was unusual for country girls because most of them just finished primary school at about age 12, and that was about it, grade 8. So she actually went and boarded in town in Warwicknabeal in the Western Districts of Victoria, and that's where she was attempting to finish high school. And what happened that prevented her finishing high school was the Second World War, and all of the men had gone to fight, and so they needed to conscript, really, young women who were quite clever at school and get them to be teachers.
Oh, wow.
So they came to her school, and she had the weekend to get herself together and be in Fitzroy in Melbourne. She'd never been to Melbourne before. She'd been to Ballarat, but never been to Melbourne before. So she had 3 days to get herself to Fitzroy to commence Teachers College. And after 6 weeks training, she became a primary school teacher.
No.
And
how old was she?
She was 17. Wow. She was 17. So she'd never lived, she'd boarded in town, but, you know, that was always people that you knew and, you know, knew the family, and, you know, you'd known them for generations, really. It wasn't like moving somewhere totally different where you knew absolutely no one. And really, until that point, she hadn't realised there was a difference between Protestant and Catholic traditions. And she, again, war years, so she had to try and make herself a dress that was fit for being a school teacher. And she had knitted herself a dress in 5-ply with the only wool colours that she could get, and it happened to be orange and green. And she showed up at a Catholic school the first day. They sent her home.
They sent her home?
Yeah, she wasn't allowed to wear orange and green together in the same dress.
Can you explain the significance of that?
Green was fine, but you couldn't have orange and green because that was the Protestant and the Catholic together, and you couldn't do that. So anyway, she spent 3 years teaching in country schools, like all around Victoria. And she was just single teacher schools, so she was the only teacher in all of these schools.
Wow, so all different ages.
All different ages, and sometimes only had 3 kids in her class. But they were such hard times that, you know, she said some of the kids had come to school after milking 60 cows in the morning, or boys aged 12 and 14 were required to, you know, chop wood, you know, for hours before they even came to school. And she just felt so sorry for them, and she'd let them sleep at their desk and things like that. So they could sleep with their head on the desk, and, you know, she wouldn't go in trouble on them. She just felt so sorry for them that they had to do the work of a man before they came to school. So.
How old was she when she met your grandfather?
She was 19, yeah, so she's 19 in the photo. They met at church. And, they were married when she was 20, and had their first child when she was 20, and they had 3 children. by the time she was 24, and he passed away. He'd had rheumatic heart fever as a child, which now is a simple and easily treated condition, and that it affected the valves in his heart. So he died of heart failure, in effect, when he was just 27 and she was 24. So she had 3 kids under 5 or under 4 and was a widow. So, I mean, as soon as she got married, she wasn't able to work anymore because they were the rules of the time. But the moment that she was on her own, she could actually go back to work. And while she didn't choose to be a teacher, and certainly wasn't what she would have chosen to do if she had the choice.
Do you know what that would have been?
Yes, I do. She wanted to be an air hostess. She thought that was very, very glamorous, but also very responsible as well. And that's, she saw a seaplane land on Lake Windaree at Ballarat, and that was what she thought she might, because the hostess stepped out.
Yes.
And my grandmother went, yes, I want to be that. So, that's really quite interesting. But she was able then to work as a teacher. So here, this career that was really a duty that she did just during the war years, she had then, became the sole reason that she was able to keep her family together. So along with family support of her parents and 2 sisters, but other women in the same circumstance, they'd lost their children. Their children would go to orphanages or what have you because you couldn't afford, couldn't afford to work and look after the kids as well.
So her kids just came to work with her essentially and went to school, or is that what happened?
The younger ones grew up on the farm. They went back to Grandma and Grandpa's house, and they grew up at the farm at Banjarang in the Western Districts of Victoria. And then the older one, who was my father, he went to school, and she enrolled him at the school that she was teaching at, which was East Ivanhoe. And she taught there when Judy, my aunt, went to school as well. And then she was working at another school called Alphington when my Uncle Les first started school. So it hurt her that she couldn't be there on his first day at school, that her mother took him to school that day. So, she had this career as a teacher, and that, I guess that sort of, that education and that the power of education was then something that she really encouraged in all of her grandchildren, because she had realised for herself how powerful that was, that it had such an incredible effect on her being able to keep her kids, have her own home, live independently. She never remarried, but she was able to be independent and look after herself until she died aged 91. She lived alone.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
And she never remarried?
Right. Never remarried. No. No. Which I think was a choice about, she didn't want the 3 older kids to ever be second best. And she'd witnessed that in other families where, the second family became the priority and the first family wasn't important anymore, and she didn't want that to happen. But very hard work, of course, to do that. To raise 3 kids, not quite on your own. She did have really good family support, but, financially. During school holidays, she'd send the kids back to the farm, and she would work in a hospital as a cook to try and make up the extra. Because at that stage in Australia, women earned 3/4 of a man's wage. So all women, even if she was the head of the family, still earned a lot less than men. And I can remember going to university when I was 17, when I first went to uni, that I had this really firmly in my mind that education and employment wasn't always equal for women. So she'd obviously talked to me quite a bit about it even before I went to university, that it was very important to her that I went to university, and I was the first person in my family to go. And I'd always loved school and enjoyed learning and that sort of thing, so I guess that was a fairly natural fit. But that was such an incredible time in history, you know, and I think that there's a real legacy that she's left for not just me, but also all women, because that opened so many doors. And, you know, the injustice, that sense of injustice, and knowing that this has to change, you know, that has changed over time, and I just feel really lucky. That's why that photo is so special, because it's sort of that moment where in your life you never know what's going to happen, and then these incredible things do happen. It's wonderful.